Hey, it's Katie, and welcome back to my BookTube channel. I know I just did a book haul, but I also just had my 21st birthday in the middle of August, and since I got even more books, I decided to make it a separate video. And I'm going to be honest with you guys and tell you that I bought most of these for myself because I wanted to give myself a gift, and also I don't have a lot of self-control. But some of these are also from my family, so it's not just for me, it's okay. So the first section of this video is going to be the books that I've already read since my birthday, and then we'll do the other books I bought for myself and then the other books that my family has bought for me. So the first book I have read already is Save the Date by Morgan Matson, and I also accidentally got myself the signed edition, so that's kind of cool. It has her signature inside. But Save the Date is about Charlie, our main character, who's the youngest child in her family, and all she wants when her siblings come back for her sister's wedding is for it to feel like it did before they all moved out. Also, something else to note is that there's a comic strip in here, which is based on their so-called perfect family, but throughout the book you start to realize that they're not so perfect after all. And there's actually parts of the comic strip throughout the book. So let me see if I can find one to show you. There we go. There we go. So like, here's one. But it was definitely a cool element. Alright, I can't find any other ones. But there's more than just the one in here. While preparing for the wedding, everything starts to go wrong. The wedding planner quits, the groom's tux goes missing, the security alarm at the house keeps going off, and literally everything else you can think of has probably gone wrong at this point. And on top of all that, the assistant for the new event planner is also distractingly cute, so there's also a romance element to this story. I gave Save the Date 3 stars on Goodreads because I felt like it was a little too easy for me to put it down, and I didn't really have that sense of urgency to pick it back up. I initially picked this one up because it has to do with the wedding where all these things start going wrong, and because I'm a future event planner, I was really interested to see how the main characters and the event planners worked to make sure it was a successful event. The next book I read was All Your Twisted Secrets by Diana Urban. And this follows 6 high school students who are invited to a private scholarship dinner. And each of the students kind of fits their own stereotype. There's the queen bee and the star athlete. There's the valedictorian and the stoner, and then the loner and the music geek. And when they get there, they end up realizing that it's a trap because they get locked in this room and they find a bomb and a syringe filled with poison. And there's also a note saying that they have an hour to kill one of them or they will all die. So they spend that hour trying to figure out how they're all connected and who would want any of them dead. And in the meantime, they reveal each other's really twisted secrets. This book was definitely a 5-star read for me because even though I've been emotionally invested in a bunch of other books I've read, this was definitely the only one that has ever made my heart race the way that it did, to the point where I'm pretty sure my body thought I was exercising when really I was just reading a book on my couch, and that was kind of crazy to me. I also really loved the way Diana Urban alternated chapters from present day of them being locked in the room together to the past, so you could kind of see how their relationships develop. And also there were so many dark, juicy secrets throughout this book that really made my jaw drop, and I really enjoyed that too. After that, I read Maybe This Time by Casey West, which follows Sophie, who works for the local florist in her hometown, meaning that she has to attend all of the big events there. And then we have Andrew, who's the son of the new chef in town, so he ends up attending all of the same events as Sophie. And after a not so great first encounter, he continues to get on her bad side. And this book takes place over the course of a year at 9 different events where Sophie and Andrew keep bumping into each other, and chemistry may or may not start to surface. I also gave this book 5 stars because, like I said earlier, I'm hoping to go into the event planning industry, so any books revolving around events automatically is interesting to me. And that was definitely my favorite part of the book. I loved that we got to experience 9 completely different events, and that our main characters were a florist, a photographer, and a caterer, so we got to see a bunch of different behind the scenes for each of these events. Also, one of my favorite tropes is enemies to lovers, and this book really displayed that perfectly because Sophie and Andrew's relationship had just the right amount of chemistry and banter and everything I look for in those types of relationships. Plus, I loved that their relationship was kind of slow burning because when I read books like this, if the transition between enemies to lovers was too quick, that kind of tends to annoy me, and this book definitely did not do that. So I ended up really liking their romance. And then the final book from my birthday haul that I have read is Distance Between Us, which is also by Kasie West. And this follows Cayman, who works at her mom's porcelain doll shop. And she was raised not to trust rich people or anyone who's wealthy. But one day, Xander comes into the store to pick up a doll for his grandma, and Cayman catches his eye. And even though he's charming, and he seems to be one of the few people that really understands her, she finds it really hard to trust him just because of how she was raised. Xander ends up really determined to prove to her that being rich isn't a character flaw. And this book was a 4 out of 5 star read for me because I will admit that it is very cliche. Not so much the characters, but the plot line for sure, because, you know, there's a poor girl who falls in love with a rich boy. But cliche stories are honestly like a guilty pleasure for me, so I ended up really liking this one. Also, as a sarcastic person, I really enjoyed how sarcastic Cayman was, and her quick wit was definitely one of my favorite parts of the story. She did have a character flaw for me, though, which was the fact that she kept assuming the worst of Xander and kept holding these prejudices against him, even though he never gave her a reason to feel that way. And I understand that it's because she was raised to be wary of rich people and to not trust them, but I still found myself getting really annoyed at some of her thoughts and some of the things that she said to him. Overall, Kasie West is becoming one of my favorites for this genre, and since her books are so short, it just makes me want to fly through all of them and just keep reading them. So I will definitely be picking up more of her stories. So the next category are all of the other books that I got for myself. And the first one is Prince Charming by Rachel Hawkins, which is about Daisy, who is this outspoken cashier with bright red hair from Florida, and she has a perfect older sister who recently got engaged to the Prince of Scotland. So all of a sudden, Daisy is thrust into the spotlight, and her every move is being watched. She's also forced to follow her sister to Scotland to live at the castle, where she meets Miles, who is basically given the task to help her tone down her personality to fit in a little more. However, at the same time, the prince's younger brother keeps trying to drag Daisy into all of his scandals. And this book interests me just because of the royalty aspect to it. Any books or shows or movies that involve royalty have always really interested me, so I'm just really excited to see how this book plays out. The next book I bought was Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, which follows Alina, who is a soldier on her first trek, but then her regiment is attacked and she ends up unleashing this power that she never knew that she had. So she ends up having to enter this world of royalty because she has to train with the Grisha, who is her country's magical military elite, and she falls under the spell of their notorious leader. And I decided to pick this one up because I'd heard really good things about the series, but also I've heard really good things about Leigh Bardugo's work, so I really wanted to give this one a chance. The next book I got was The Unexpected Everything by Morgan Matson, and this is about Andy, who has her whole life planned out, but then her dad has this political scandal, and she's forced to move in with him, and that's really all I know about this book. I mean, there's a bunch of dogs on the cover, so I know that she ends up walking a bunch of dogs, and I know she ends up bumping into a guy named Clark. But other than that, the synopsis doesn't really say too much about what happens. But this just really seemed like a cute summer romance book, and the dogs are definitely a bonus because I love dogs, so that's really why I picked this one up. The last book I bought for myself for my birthday was Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. And our main character, Frances, spends most of her time studying, but when she's not doing that, she's making fan art for her favorite podcast, Universe City. Our other main character, Alid, is only known for being really quiet and smart, but no one knows that he is also the creator of Universe City, and he has the online name of Radio Silence. So one day he messages Frances and asks to collaborate with her, so they end up working together throughout the summer and becoming best friends. But once his identity is revealed, Frances thinks that the podcast, and more importantly their friendship, is at risk. And I really wanted to pick this one up because ever since I got back into watching BookTube, this is a book that I've always heard good things about, so I really wanted to pick this one up. So now we're going to move on to books that I got from my family. And the first one is Love and Luck by Jenna Evans Welch, which follows Addie, who's visiting Ireland because of her aunt's destination wedding. But Addie is also hoping to escape something really bad that happened to her, which left her heartbroken and threatened her future. But this trip ended up not going as well as she thought it was going to go until she finds this unusual guidebook, which is called Ireland for the Heartbroken. So after she finds that, she ends up in this vehicle with her brother and his new Irish friend as they explore Ireland using this new guidebook that she found. And that just sounds like a really cute story to me, especially because I've already read Love and Gelato by the same author, and I really loved that I felt like I was traveling to a different place because I've always wanted to travel, but I haven't really gone anywhere yet. But I really loved that Jenna's writing kind of transports you to a completely different place, and she portrays it so beautifully, and her writing is just very charming. So I'm very excited to read another one of her books. Next, we have The Wedding Date by Jasmine Guillory. And this is about Alexa and Drew, who get stuck in this elevator together, and then he asks her to be his date to a wedding. Except it's not just any wedding, it's his ex who's getting married. So he ends up really thankful for the power outage that forces them to be stuck in an elevator together, because he really thinks that Alexa is fake girlfriend material. So they end up going to the wedding together and having even more fun than they expected to. But when the wedding's over, they have to go their separate ways and go back to their jobs. The only problem is they can't seem to get the other person out of their head. And I really wanted to read this one just because it just sounds super cute. I don't know. I also kind of really enjoy like fake relationships that potentially turn into real ones. I think that's a really cool plot line. So hopefully I enjoy it. The next book I got was Cursed by Thomas Wheeler, and this book was also illustrated by Frank Miller. And this is about Nimue, who was an outcast in her village because she has this connection to dark magic. But one day her whole village is slaughtered, and her dying mother tells her she needs to reunite an ancient sword with a legendary sorcerer because that's people's only hope. So she ends up teaming up with Arthur, who is a mercenary and a refugee from England, and she wields the sword meant for the one true king. As she fights in battles, she attempts to reunite her people, avenge her family, and discover the truth about what's happening. And this book was honestly not a book that I asked for, but it definitely sounds interesting. It's something that I wouldn't have necessarily picked up on my own, but I'm excited to give it a chance. And also, it says that it's going to be a Netflix original series soon, so hopefully if I like it, I will be able to binge the series. So we'll see. So the last book that I got for my birthday was The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh, which takes place in 1872 in New Orleans, and it follows Celine, who was forced to leave her life in Paris and she ends up being taken in by the convent in New Orleans. She becomes involved in the city's underworld after catching the eye of their leader, Sebastian. But then a girl's body is found in his lair, and another body is found in the next few weeks. And after a third murder, the whole city of New Orleans is thrown into a panic because they know that there's a serial killer on the loose, and the serial killer has Celine in his sights. So she tries to take things into her own hands, but she finds herself in the middle of this age-old feud between the darkest creatures of the night. I really wanted to read this one just because I've always been interested in New Orleans as a city. I really want to go there. I think everything about it is just fascinating. And also this kind of feels like a vampire book, or really anything about like the underworld. Just really, I think that's cool. So combining those two elements is definitely really exciting for me, and I'm really excited to read this one. So those are all the books that I got for my birthday this year, and I'm very excited to read the ones I haven't read yet. Also, I promise that my next few videos will not be book hauls because I know that I've done a lot of those recently, and I think we all need a break from those, especially my bank account. Also, please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe because that would really make my day. And also make sure you click the notification bell because I still don't have an uploading schedule, so that's probably the only way you'll know when new videos come out. But thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in my next video.